In 1970, a dental hygienist from Los Angeles released an incredibly unique album, but was never in the spotlight until the modern internet era brought her out of obscurity. More than 4 decades later, Linda Perhacs finally performed live and released 2 follow-up albums after turning 70 years old. Stay tuned to hear the full story. Linda Jean Arnold was born September 21st, 1943 in Santa Monica, California, and though she was never formally taught, she began to mentally compose full songs with complex melodies, lyrics, and even dance choreography as early as the age of 5 years old. In the late 1960s, she moved to Topanga Canyon and worked in Beverly Hills as a dental hygienist, where she served many celebrity clients like Cary Grant and Paul Newman. One of her clients was a film composer named Leonard Rosenman, who had done scores for films such as Rebel Without a Cause and some episodes of The Twilight Zone, among many other projects. Sometime in 1969, Leonard knew there was more to this girl than she was putting off, and asked Linda what else she did outside of her work. So she brought in a tape of herself singing her own compositions, most likely accompanied by her guitar. The following Saturday at 8 a.m., Leonard Rosenman called her on the phone to offer to produce an album for her. One night, long after the sun had gone down, Linda was driving home on the freeway when she saw patterns of lights and colors in the sky. She has never been a drug user and was totally sober, but she claims that there have been many times in her life in which she was able to visualize music without actually hearing anything. She recognized this sonic sculpture in the sky as musical genius and pulled over to the side of the road to draw and write down what she was seeing so that she could bring it to Leonard Rosenman. She feared he'd think her crazy, but he said something about how he'd be lucky to have 2 ideas in his whole lifetime as bold and as ingenious as this one, and that they should make it the centerpiece and title track to the album, even if the suits at the record label won't be able to understand it. They eventually combined these ideas with a Celtic melody that she had been writing on the 12-string guitar, as well as 24 layers of vocal tracks. Leonard Rosenman was into avant-garde ideas and was the first to produce a Hollywood score with the 12-tone technique. He also had access to before-their-time electronics that he borrowed from his space movie soundtracks. Nature-loving Linda Perhacs had gentle but abstract ideas with modal sounds and a beautifully angelic voice. The 2 of them, along with some of the best jazz session musicians at the time, worked together mostly at night after her shifts at the dental clinic over a period of 9 months to create the album Parallelograms. All of the songs were written by Linda Perhacs, with the exception of Hey Who Really Cares, which was co-written with Oliver Nelson, who was composing the music for a TV show called Matt Lincoln. The show uses a version of the song titled Hey Does Somebody Care, performed by a group called God's Children. There was no hype or promotion for the album, which allowed it to be created with only the love and inspiration to create true art. The label wanted her to be a more psychedelic competition for Joni Mitchell, but I believe that Linda had already expressed her reluctance to leave her job to go on an album tour, which is likely a big reason why the record label didn't promote the album at all. It was released on April 4th of 1970 and pressed so poorly that Linda listened to her copy one time before throwing it in the garbage, preferring to only keep her own quarter-inch tapes. The label had squashed and dulled the sound, removing most of the highs and lows so that it could air on AM radio. Linda was never asked to promote the album and never heard any reviews or feedback other than one distributor who enjoyed the album but had to focus on selling other music. If you're enjoying this video so far, please be sure to give it a like so that the algorithm can show it to more people. I'd really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing. Thank you very much, and now we fast forward to 1998 when a fan of the album named Michael Piper remastered a mint-condition version of the album and released it on CD under his company The Wild Places. He did not get permission from Linda as he didn't know how to find her, but a couple of years later he finally got in contact with her, and she expressed her grievances with how their original vision had been tampered and was able to give Michael Piper her original tapes for a new remaster that he released in 2003. Though there are a couple songs that are more rock-leaning with bass, electric guitar, and percussion, much of the album consists of gentle finger-picking on acoustic guitar, with at least one layer of Linda's angelic voice and moments with added orchestration or psychedelic electronic effects. The entire 11-track album is a joy from beginning to end, but I'd like to quickly mention some of the standout tracks. Chimicum Rain has wonderful harmonies that create a sort of echo, while the song reflects a mood that Linda must have felt from the weather during a time in which she had lived in Chimicum, Washington. Hey Who Really Cares is a catchy number, seemingly about loneliness and simply needing someone to talk to that will actually care about what she is feeling, and the melodic bass line really helps drive the song. And of course there is the genius of the title track, Parallelograms, with its 24 layers of vocals and crazy electronic sounds on it. The song is meant to form some type of circle around the listener, and in the middle devolves into pure avant-garde psychedelia, using electronic sounds and more voices before coming full circle and returning to the themes heard earlier in the song. It was her attempt at turning the moving sculpture she'd seen in the sky into a surround sound, three-dimensional experience for the user. Pure brilliance. The bonus tracks, first heard in 2003, include 2 versions of a piano song that had never been heard before, as well as a track of Linda offering some sound effects that she'd come up with for Leonard to try using at different speeds on Chimicum Rain, and then a version of that song utilizing some of these ideas. There have been other reissues of the album over the years, and in 2008, another couple of bonus tracks popped up, including a fairly generic pop rock song, I Would Rather Love, which was apparently recorded in 1978, but I can't find any information about it online other than that someone named Fleetfoot plays guitar on it. It's possible there are just a lot of factory errors out there, but I saw a lot of people on Discogs complaining about specific different versions of the vinyl. Some say that their version played great, and some say that it had a lot of pops or a dulled sound or something. But I would recommend, if you don't need the vinyl yourself, to buy the album directly from Linda Perhacs on her Bandcamp, lindaperhacs.bandcamp.com. Now that Linda's music was far more accessible and better sounding, it continued to spread around the world and create an audience of appreciative listeners. In 2007, she contributed backing vocals on a song called Freely by Devendra Banhart, not to be confused with a song of her own that she would later release called Freely. Then she finally performed on stage for the first time in 2009 and quickly got hooked to bringing joy to live audiences. I believe it was at her first performance that she met an experimental art pop musician by the name of Julia Holter, and the two of them would write songs together. In 2012, Linda Perhacs saw a solar eclipse that would lead to a new explosion of ideas in her head that would eventually evolve into a song that she called River of God. And during a time in which she was wondering exactly how she was going to express her new ideas, she got an email from another fan of hers, a musician and producer named Fernando Perdomo, who operated out of a studio near to where she lived. Along with Chris Price, another musician and producer that Fernando Perdomo had played with before, the three of them would go on to record an album titled The Soul of All Natural Things, which was released on Asthmatic Kitty Records on March 4th of 2014, about 44 years after Linda's first album. Though there is a much broader range of instruments and a much more full sound than on Parallelograms, this album still feels very organic and true to Linda's nature. Some of the album is as gentle and ethereal as her first release, while some sounds a little more modern with a lot of layers of different instruments. I read a little bit about Perhacs hearing a techno version of one of her songs and becoming inspired by it. And fortunately for my own personal listening pleasure, her producers didn't allow her to go full techno and kept an organic sound, using 3 human percussionists to achieve some of the sound she was looking for on the song Intensity. Apparently she had to put her foot down in order to get some synthesizer on a track. She must have shown an earlier version of one of these songs to another fan of hers, Ekel Okerfeldt of Opeth, who told her, "Linda, this is too techno." And apparently she had never heard that word before. I have to derail for a minute to talk about Opeth because I'm a big fan of them, and there are a lot of places on the internet that claim that Opeth recorded a version of Parallelograms. And though I would absolutely love to hear that, I searched for it for quite a while, and I am guessing that if there ever was a recording, it doesn't exist for the public to hear. My focus is to bring light to unique musicians from around the world that deserve more recognition. I'm aware that I could get more views and make more money on YouTube by talking about popular subjects, but that would defeat the purpose of my channel and kill my inspiration. So if you hope that I continue making videos like these, please find it in your heart to support me in any way you can. You can buy my merch that's available, or potentially donate to my Bandcamp page, or I think there might even be a thanks button down there. The least you can do is push the like button and subscribe, and maybe even share these videos to people so that they can learn about interesting and unique music as well. Thank you very, very much, and I'll stop talking about me now. September of 2017 would see the release of a third Linda Perhacs album, I'm a Harmony, this time on Omnivore Recordings. And though Fernando Perdomo and Chris Price would once again co-produce the album together, they were also joined by Pat Sansone of Wilco and the Autumn Defense. The album features other members of Wilco, as well as Devendra Banhart, Julia Halter, who once again helped with some of the writing process, and many other guests. At the time of scripting this, I feel I need to listen through this album a couple of more times, but currently, the long title track with its psychedelic middle section is very appealing to me and is reminiscent of the song Parallelograms, though very different. I also recommend the single from this album, The Dancer. Now for a story of small world coincidences. I was turned on to this artist by a man that I very much respect, Matt Arnold, the father of one of my best friends in the world, Kevin Arnold. Matt had watched many, if not all, of my early videos on this channel, and he recommended that I look up his older half-sister, Linda Perhacs, originally named Linda Jean Arnold. I listened to and enjoyed all of her albums a couple of years ago, but never ended up taking the time to make a video about her. Around that same time that I first heard about Linda Perhacs, I noticed that a producer named Fernando Perdomo had followed my YouTube channel, and I became friends with him on Facebook. I had no idea that the two were connected at all until the singer of our band Fablewake and I were trading music with each other, and we looked at the biography of Linda Perhacs, which mentioned Fernando Perdomo. Fernando released a new solo album called Self on June 14th, and I listened to it 2 times through while going to meet my singer at a jazz club, and when I got there, Phil told me that he had been listening to Linda Perhacs all day. So I felt it was clearly the time to take this inspiration and love of her music and bring this story to you here on Sean's Music Hunt. I very much recommend checking out Fernando's new album, and the first single by Fablewake should be releasing on Tower of Doom Records within a week or 2 of this video's release, and I'll have links below. At this point, Linda Perhacs has now entered her 80s and is happily enjoying her retirement, and we hope we get many years out of her. Thank you very much for this wonderful music that you have gifted us with, Linda. I hope that you get to see this video, and we appreciate you so much. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to click the like button down below and consider for subscribing to learn about more obscure music or details on music that you have already loved. Thank you very much, and have a happy listening session.